Alright, so what you're going to be doing is going to look somewhat simple and simplistic at first, but I'm going to show you a few reasons why it's not. Okay, so be careful as you're watching me to assume that this is going to be too easy for me and I can just start working on myself because I won't make any mistakes. Too easy. Alright, they will get some complications and I'll show you what those are in a moment. So make sure you're following along. Now, what you're going to be doing is there are some graphing things on here. We're not going to look at that for now, but you're going to be adding and subtracting some polynomials together. Okay? So we're going to give you two functions and have you add subtract those. Okay? And what, in the most basic way, it's going to look like this. We're going to have f of x, right, which equals this, and we're going to add g of x to it. And we're just going to stack it up like an old-fashioned addition problem that you learned in elementary school. Okay, so something like this will be 3x plus 5 and like 2x plus 4, and really you just add them up. Now you notice how I lined up the two x's together and the two numbers together. That's important. Okay, so if you just add these up, you get 3x plus 2x. Now, do not confuse this for what we did in the last chapter. We're just counting how many there are. So if you have 3x's and 2x's, go ahead and add them up. You get 5x's total. If you have negative 5 plus 4, go ahead and do negative 1. Okay? So nothing too hard, nothing you can't handle. All right. Go ahead and try number 2 in the same way. So make sure you can get. You don't really need to put this part here. And just go ahead and write them up vertically and line everything up properly and make sure it works out. Okay, so in the same way we got, let's see here, negative x minus 1 and negative x plus 3. So negative 1 and negative 1. Just negative 2x, right? And negative 1 plus 3 is just positive 2. So you notice how we're not adding exponents anymore. We know this is an x to the 1, this is x to the 1. We're not adding exponents because this is not multiplication. We're just counting how many there are total. So once again, the one thing that might be difficult here is not, well, what's negative 1 and negative 1. It's not confusing it with everything we've been learning about exponents. So if you're adding and subtracting, you get different rules than when you're multiplying everything together. If you look back on your review, you'd see everything was basically multiplication or division. That's why it has its own separate rules that are not the same as these. Okay? When we're doing subtraction, okay, like on 3 and 4, very similar. Just got to make sure we subtract everything. So you notice how this is a minus here. So we're going to subtract. So the only catch is that we have to subtract everything. So I'm going to put a subtraction sign, but that means I have to subtract 2x and I have to subtract 4. So we can gotta be very careful. So the 3x minus 2x, pretty familiar, right? Negative x. But the answer here is not going to be negative 5 plus 4. It's actually negative 5 minus 4. So here's where things can get messed up if you're not careful and you start missing one negative on every problem. And every single one of the answers can come out incorrect because you're not accounting for one little negative sign out here. So it's really negative 5 minus 4. So negative 9. Okay? So go ahead and try that for number 4. Okay, very similar. Just make sure you account for that negative on the outside. So yeah, that's 3 minus 2 is positive x, not negative. So let's go here, try the same thing out. So we have negative x minus 1, and we have negative x plus 3, right? Remember, we're subtracting. So really, all of this should be negative. So we have negative x minus a negative x. Negative x minus negative x would be 0, right? Negative x, if you need to, you can write it off like negative x minus negative x, right? That's the same as negative x plus x, which equals 0. And we have negative 1 minus 3. So we get negative 4. 0 minus 4 is just answer of -4. So again, something that looks simple, but if you just assume, there's no way to mess this up, that's where you'll start making mistakes. Okay, so you can see, try to line these things up vertically, and trying to remember this negative can be easy to mess up on. So you can do these a variety of ways so that doesn't happen. Okay. So another way of doing it is just noticing that, okay, this is addition, so I'm really just matching up anything that's the same exponent. I'm only going to combine if it's the same exponent. So I'm going to combine like this with this, because they're both x to the 3. And then I'm going to combine this with this. So you notice I'm kind of using a highlighter to help myself identify ahead of time what will be combined with what. That way there's no mix-up later. And then we can also just like underline, okay, the -5 will combine with a -3. And if we're adding, you really just, it's a matter of just looking here, and adding them up. So like here we can say that's 1x to the 3rd. This is 4x to the 3rd. So altogether, 5x to the 3rd. Just counting. 4 plus 1 is 5. Exponent does not change. We're counting. And then we have -6x squared and +2x squared. So you get -4x squared. All right, and keep going if you think you can do the rest. 9x -x will give you +8x, right? 9 minus 1 is 8. And then lastly, you have -5 and -3, which make -8. There you go. So you see how I'm just breaking it down to really 4 separate small problems. If the exponent is in the original question, right, it will be in the answer as well. You won't start with x to the 3rds and end up with x to the 6ths or 5ths or something. Okay, if it's not in the question, then it won't be in the answer. Now, it can be like number 4, where it's in the question, and then they end up equaling 0, so it's not in the answer. That's fine. But you won't have any new exponents in the answer that are not already in the question. That's one way of kind of seeing if you're off using the wrong rule. Okay. All right, go ahead and try 6. See how that goes. Okay. And again, you can underline, you can circle, box, and help yourself put things together that go together ahead of time, so they're not mixed up later. You only get to use each term one time. You can't add it to one term and then add it to another term. From here, let's go ahead and skip down to the back side and do some subtraction, just to make sure. Okay. Now, my advice for you, let's just go down here. It's kind of difficult to do this part, because if you do this and say, okay, there's only 1x to the 3rd, here are the m's to the 7th, right? And here are the numbers. If you start doing this, you're going to get this answer. And it would be 7m to the 3rd. Once again, there's only, don't write this down, there's only one m to the 3rd, so that would be it. Then you might do this, okay, -2 minus 7, and you'll get -9. M to the 2nd, and then you say, oh, there's no m, no other m, so that's just going to be plus 2m. And then you might say 6 minus 4, and you get +2. Okay, now does this look right? Yes, but it's not right. Very incorrect. And this is what the problem is with it. It's not that it's difficult as far as, well, you just have to add 2 numbers, really. You're just doing -2 and -7 and get -9. How can I mess this up? Well, there's a mistake here. There's actually 2 of them. Okay, so let's go back and I'll show you why this is wrong. It's because, once again, there's a minus sign. We're subtracting everything like we did up here. You got to remember it was -5 minus +4. That's how we got -9. What we just did is we just looked at the 2 that are same and we added them together, which is incorrect. So here's what we do to get around that, is we do our old friend distributive property, and we just say, let's distribute that negative to each one of those, right? So take the time to rewrite the whole problem. -2m plus 4, right? Take the time to do this. and rewrite the whole problem, and as an addition problem, the first one's going to stay the same. So the first part just stays the same. But that second one, I move that negative to each one of these. And of course, on the last one, the negative with the -4 became a positive. So basically, turn everything into an addition problem, and you won't have any of these, oh, that looks really easy, I got that right. And then you got, oh, that one's wrong, over and over and over because of, you know, this is so simple, there's no way I could be getting this wrong. Of course, you have to rewrite this problem to correct. That's a third power. So the first part's really just going to stay the same from one down here. But the second one, when you have subtraction, please take the time to rewrite the whole thing. You're going to think to yourself, I don't really need to do that. Yes, you do. You will miss some little thing, I guarantee, and it'll come out wrong over and over because of it's too simple for me to actually show work. I won't get it wrong, and then that's when you do. Okay? So let's do the same thing again as before. So we know this will be by itself. It's the only m to the third. Here are m to the seconds. Right? Those will get combined together. And here are our numbers. Right? So if we rewrite this carefully, we'll have this time 7m to the third. Right? Because there's no other m to the threes. The -2 and the -7 will end up making -9 m to the second. So far, nothing different, right, from what we got before just by winging it. But now when we get to this part, okay, this is a -2m, -2m. I had a +2m earlier, so that part was wrong, right? And now let's do the numbers. 6 plus 4 is 10. Yeah, I got that part wrong too. So really what looked like super easy, no problem, half of it was wrong. And you probably didn't even realize it. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, that looks correct. Yeah, that's the problem with these. They're so simple that you don't think you can mess up, and that's when you do. So take the time for each of these and write out the whole distributive property to avoid going through the frustration of, this is so easy, how come I'm not getting it right? Why is this happening? It seems like everybody around me is getting it right, and it's so simple, how come I can't get it right? Because you're staring at it thinking, I don't have to write work down, and then it's not working out for you. Okay? So write it out and you won't have that issue. Alright, so give it a try on number 12. Show the distributive property, rewrite the whole first parenthesis, rewrite it, and rewrite the whole second parenthesis with the negative distributed. And then check what's on next to you and see if it comes out correct. Alright, so what do we come up with our answer? What do we start off with? -5, right? X to the fourth. Because -4 and -1 would be -5. After that, we have 1x to the third, 3x to the third, so we have plus 4x to the third. After that, negative times negative x squared would be positive x squared. So we have 2x squared plus 1x squared, so altogether you have 3x squared. And after that, we have negative times 4, which is -4. There's no number here, so just -4. So there's your final answer. Notice how I pretty much needed to do this whole thing. I have to write out the work to distribute it and then combine. The really only way you're going to keep getting these wrong is if you don't do this step, because you're too smart for it and you're in a big hurry, and that's when you'll get it wrong. So slow down, have some patience, and it'll work out well. Okay, so your homework tonight is going to start here on Khan Academy. Okay. Go ahead and switch over to Khan Academy. You should see something that looks like this. Go ahead and click on the, it says recommended by, and it should say Substract Polynomials. Go ahead and refresh your screen maybe. There's a button right above the 4 key. Hit refresh. And it should refresh your screen and something should pop up. If you're new and this is the first time using Khan Academy, it might make you do something called a warm-up, and you'll have to do that first. So if that's the case, just look up front. But most of you you kind of know how this works. If it's not working on yours, look on somebody else's so you know what to look for, what you'll eventually see. Right there. Simple stuff here. I can see the internet's sometimes a little fickle, and if your screen just keeps on doing that spur dance and keeps on going in circles, just be patient. You could try redoing the computer as well. Well, okay. So the thing with this, if you're new to Khan Academy, is that you have to get 5 in a row correct. Not put in 5 answers and then click enter and say I did 5 problems. If you don't get it correct, it'll start you all over. So you're kind of forced to slow down, show your work on another piece of paper, and be absolutely sure you're doing it right as you go along, as opposed to just writing something and saying, okay, I wrote something, so I'll finish. It changes your focus to finishing to accuracy. Focus should be doing it right and not going too fast, as opposed to hurry up and finish, so I'm done. So you have to do 5 in a row correct, otherwise you have to do 5 in a row correct, otherwise you will not finish and you'll receive a 0 for your homework because of it. So you have to do them correctly. Okay? This is your homework assignment, yes. So you have to do them correctly. For some of you, this is obvious. You do that all the time. You're always making sure you do them right. Other people, it's like new, like, wait a minute, I have to do them right? Yes, that's what you're supposed to do all the time anyway. But maybe now that you're forced to do it, you do, but it's really what you always want to do. Okay, so don't go too fast. And I'm going to walk you through some of the details in a second.
Go, class.
Okay, so first thing, go in and watch up here. All right. Be very careful on the directions. This helps to read. So it says subtract negative 2x squared plus 4x minus 1 from 6x squared plus 3x minus 9. Okay, so let's actually put this in perspective. Subtract, let's say instead of I say 5. Subtract 5 from 10. How do you do that? What's the answer? Subtract 5 from 10, and you get an answer of 5. And how'd you do that? 10 minus 5, right? So you don't want to see the word subtract and think it means this minus this. It's the second one. Oh, okay. It's the second one. It's the second one minus the first one. So if you're going to rewrite this the way we were doing the last ones, this will be 6x squared plus 3x minus 9, right? And then it will be minus negative 2x squared plus 4x minus 1. So you see how the order is important here. So if you see subtract and you just subtract those two, that's not going to work. It has to be the second one minus the first one. So then you take the time, you say, okay, this is going to be plus 2x squared. This is going to be minus 4x. This is going to be plus 1. right? Then you can go ahead and solve it. Okay, we got 6x squared plus 2x squared, 8x squared. We got 3x minus 4x, which is minus x. And then we have negative 9 and positive 1, which is negative 8. Which you'll be writing, everything you see, you should be writing on another piece of paper to make sure you do it absolutely correct. And then you can type it in 8x. There's a little exponent button right here, which is to the second power. So I just click that, and it makes it an exponent. I click the right button, and it'll bring it back down. Then I can type in minus x and minus 8. Right? And it has to be put in exactly correct, otherwise it's going to be wrong. You click the check answer, right? And it'll give you happy face if you did it right. If you do it wrong, it'll kind of shake its head at you like, no, that's not it. Which means you got the wrong answer, but also you have to start all over. You have to get 5 in a row starting from that point if you get it wrong. So again, slow down, show all your work, be very careful so you don't have to start over any more times than you actually need to. You click it again, and then you see here the question might be a little different. And you can see, oh, which one, where's the error? You can look at it and try to figure that out. Okay, so first step looks good, exactly what I just showed you. Second step, make sure they distributed right. Negative times negative is positive. Negative times positive is negative. Negative times positive is positive. That looks correct. And then you can see how they group the r squares. It should be 3r squared and 5r squared, but they did 3 and 9. So they kind of mixed up the 3 and the 9, so we know step 3 right here, that's the incorrect step. Okay? But just to show you what it looks like if you get it wrong, if you click step 2, okay, it says not correct yet, please try again. You could click step 3 and say, okay, that's correct, but now you have to start all over. Okay? So that's how you're going to finish your homework. You'll have a little bit of time at the beginning of the class tomorrow if you need to, but also the library is open until 5 o'clock every day. They have computers. You can work on this anywhere. You can work on this at home. This is not a have to be at school assignment. This is on the internet. So as long as you know your login that you use to log into the Chromebook, you could go to Khan Academy and click login with Google, put the exact same email address and password in, and you can pick up right where you left off right now. So it's an internet site that works anywhere. It even works on smartphones if you have the app. You can go in there and do it on your smartphone. Okay? So, and tomorrow we're going to work on, you guys are going to work on the same thing but with 2 variables. Okay? Which is basically the same thing. Just make sure that both variables are the same before you combine them. So you can't combine an a, b to the fourth with a c, d because they're not the same variables. It has to be exactly the same to combine. One other note, you'll notice that all the answers have the highest exponent written first, and then we count down. Then you want to put the x squareds, then the x's, and then the number last. So practice that as well. Make sure the highest exponent is first, and it counts down. Okay. All right, let you guys work on that a little bit.